Listen to this podcast now
on the Red Apple Podcast Network. The Leadership Thread with Dr. Peggy Polonis.
I'm Dr. Peggy Polonis. Join me on each episode where I unravel the story that shaped leaders, tracing the thread that led them where they are today. Because leadership isn't born in adulthood. And thank you once again for joining us on the Leadership Thread, education, ethics, and sustainability.
Download all of Red Apple Media's podcasts right now through your favorite podcast platform.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
And tonight on the Rita Cosby Show, there are reports that the Kurds are coming. As you may have heard, this is a very big deal. If indeed the Kurds decide to take the fight on the ground and bring it into Tehran, that would be an enormous, enormous success. Welcome to the Rita Cosby Show. Because if you can have those ferocious fighters on the ground, and there are reports that they would be potentially supplied by the CIA and others, that could be very powerful and a massive, massive force. We're going to be talking about that because that could be a game changer. Also, in the middle of all this, we are hearing that Pete Hegseth, of course, the Secretary of War, Pete is saying essentially that the U.S. strikes are now going to get even deeper into Iran and that the United States is just getting started. President Trump saying the same thing. You ain't seen nothing yet. Well, here is President Trump earlier today giving an assessment on what he has seen so far with Operation Epic Fury.
We're doing very well on the war front, to put it mildly, I would say. Somebody said, on a scale of 10, where would you rate it? I said about a 15. And we're going to continue to do well. We have the greatest military in the world by far. And that was a tremendous threat to us for many years. 47 years they've been killing our people and killing people from all over the world. And I think we have great support. And I think if we didn't do it first, they would have done it to Israel and give us a shot if that was possible. And if we didn't terminate the worst deal, one of the worst deals ever made, the Obama nuclear deal, I call it the Obama nuclear deal, where he gave everything to Iran, including a nuclear weapon. It was a road to a nuclear weapon. Bad things would have happened 4 years ago because they would have had a weapon 4 years ago if I didn't terminate that deal. So we're in a very strong position now, and their leadership is just rapidly going. Everybody that seems to want to be a leader, they end up dead. And it's an amazing thing that's taking place before your eyes, because for 47 years we were pushed around and we shouldn't have been.
And it is really amazing to see some of the statistics, as you heard. In fact, one of the things that was really interesting today is to hear that a U.S. sub sunk an Iranian warship. And the irony of it all, that warship was named after Qasem Soleimani, who, of course, was the former head of the Iranian Revolutionary Guard. And that's who President Trump took out in that strike in his first term. So how appropriate that this guy who the Iranians were celebrating, they even name a big ship after him, that meets the bottom of the ocean courtesy of a USS torpedo. I love this. And it's the first time that a U.S. torpedo has sunk a warship since World War II. And pretty incredible, it is the United States hitting Iran from every different direction. And here is President Trump also today. I thought this was interesting because he was asked, the reporters, all they want to talk about is, oh, isn't it terrible that this happened, isn't it? And he's like, wait. And in fact, a lot of them are saying, they're talking about how there may have been civilians hit in some of these strikes in Iran, which is very sad. Obviously, it's terrible. Nobody wants to see that. But it's certainly not like the U.S. is even trying to target those individuals, as opposed to Iran, which is indiscriminately firing these drones all over the place, hitting hotels and embassies. What do you think you are aiming for? And so you hear them all sitting there saying, oh, what do you think? There might have been some kids at a school that were hurt, which is terrible, obviously. That's the last thing you want to happen. But let's not also forget that Hamas is a proxy, of course, of Iran, and Hamas was building all these underground tunnels and all these terror outlets right underneath the big hospital there in Gaza. And that's what Iran is essentially doing, too. They're putting schools and they're putting churches and they're putting all these things next to federal buildings, next to government buildings where the Ayatollah and others are hanging out. This is like an MO for terrorists. Let's put innocent civilians right in harm's way. So if by chance they hit that terror tunnel in Gaza, well, then they're going to blow up that hospital. Or if they hit that terror target in Tehran, well, there's a school next door. So, I mean, this is really, obviously, U.S. is trying to avoid civilian casualties at all costs. But when I hear these reporters, after all of these things that we just talked about, the incredible success, the, U.S. launching so many attacks, so many missiles, having an enormous success, like close to 20 Navy ships, and the Iranian Navy, if they even have any more, they're at the bottom of the ocean. And yet they can't applaud that. It's like they're rooting against America, a lot of the people in the media. And then you got Gavin Newsom, who all he's talking about is that some kids were killed. And the White House is saying, we're looking into it to find out. But I wouldn't even put it past the Iranians that they did it. I'm just going to throw it out there. We don't know. You know, it's not like the U.S. by any means is targeting civilians. And people need to wake up and realize that some of these people that are asking some of these questions, it sounds like they work for Iranian state TV. And here is President Trump earlier today, because he also talked about the strike that took place in June, where they hit those 3 nuclear sites. And what was really fascinating to me is he talked about how they were literally, he thought, about 2 weeks away from maybe getting close to getting a nuclear weapon. That is absolutely frightening. We're talking about back in June when the B-2 bombers came in and unloaded on those 3 sites. Thank goodness he did it. Thank goodness. And what we're hearing about is that they were continuing to do it at different sites all over again. So do you want to be a Neville Chamberlain or do you want to be Winston Churchill? Here is Donald Trump.
You see the tremendous progress that's being made. Their missiles are being wiped out rapidly. Their launchers are being wiped out. They're attacking their neighbors. They're attacking their, in some cases, allies or not so long ago allies. And, you know, it's really a nation that was out of control, and they would have used it on us if we let them, if we waited any longer. A big factor was Soleimani, the killing of Soleimani in my first term. And maybe the biggest factor was the rebuilding of the military in my first term. And then the B-2s hit the, and I use the word obliterate because it was a complete obliteration of their nuclear potential. And that set them back very, very seriously. If we didn't hit within 2 weeks, they would have had a nuclear weapon. If we didn't do the B-2 attack a number of months ago, they would have a nuclear weapon. And when crazy people have nuclear weapons, bad things happen.
Yeah, do you want probably the craziest person in the world? The Ayatollah, who's probably crazier than Kim Jong-un. He's probably crazier than Putin. They're all crazy. The 3 musketeers of craziness, I guess I would call them. But you're going to really allow somebody like that a nuclear weapon when you just heard that they were weeks away at that moment? I mean, that is a frightening prognosis. And anybody out there, I'm curious, is there anybody out there who thinks, oh no, let's let them get a nuclear weapon? And yet, if you listen to a lot of people in the media, they are just, all they're talking about is, why did you do this? Why did you hurt those nice, sweet Ayatollahs? This is an incredible moment where I think courage comes forward and shines. And thank goodness we have President Trump and Netanyahu in the forefront of it all.
If you're looking to create, grow, and sustain your wealth, download and subscribe to the Pain Points of Wealth podcast at BeBullish.com with Bob, Ryan, and Chris Payne. It's your podcast for market insights, money tips, and real talk on the economy.
Download and subscribe
at BeBullish.com.